Добър ден, почитувани гледачи. Ја следите емисијата Македонско издание, која што секоја втора сабота ве информира за поважните настани во комунава во Торонто и околината и секако ве забавува со разновидна македонска музика. Денеска е 6 февруари 2016 година и ова е 371-та емисија на Македонско издание. Јас сум Победа Пискачева, водителот и уредникот на оваа ваша програма, за која секако знаете е независна телевизиска продукција и вашата помош за обстојувањето на оваа емисија е многу значајна. Затоа апелираме да ги рекламирате вашите бизниси преку нас со оглед дека оваа ваша телевизиска програма влегува во 4 милиони претплатнички домови во Онтарио и ви овозможува експонирање на вашите сервиси во исто толкав број на домови. На самиот почеток сакам да ви се заблагодарам што одлучивте и во ова саботно попладне во наредниве 30 минути да бидете заедно со нас. Како што знаете, почитувани гледачи, во нашава емисија често пати имаме интервјуа со интересни личности кои се од македонско потекло, а родени во Канада. Еден од нив е професорот Том Васос, авторот на книгата Destination Innovation, и во денешнава емисија го репризираме интервјуто што го снимивме со него минатата година.
We're talking to Mr. Tom Vassos, the author of the book Destination Innovation and university professor teaching
marketing and business strategies.
It wasn't so difficult for me to say, but you are more complex than that. We would like to inform our viewers about all your job that you have done. I know it's not easy in a few minutes interview, but what was the motivation to write this book?
It's interesting because a few years ago, my daughter and I were driving up the highway, and wouldn't you know it, we actually ran out of gas. And as we're leaving the car to go get gas, she was very frustrated because we ran out of gas. And as she's leaving, she posted on her Facebook, she says, "Ran out of gas, walking dangerously up the highway, and my dad's a loser." And it was funny because by the time we got to the gas station 10 minutes later, she had 17 likes on Facebook. And all of a sudden it hit me that this never could have happened in the past, this immediate communication on the mobile phone, and this connection to social media, which got an instant reaction. And it gave us a good laugh, but it really inspired me to say, wow, if that could happen in this one simple example, what could businesses do to communicate with customers? What could governments do to communicate better with citizens? And it really inspired me to go ahead and write the book.
So let's start with the social media and social life first, right? How is this taking us? Where is this taking us as human beings?
Well, social media just allows people to open up their lives to others, to communicate with others. Some people are saying it's forcing them more to stay in their homes, but I would suggest it could be a motivator to connect more with friends, to go out with friends and things like that. From a business perspective, it's really transforming entire institutions, companies, how we get funding. So people are posting information, for example, to websites like Kickstarter and generating hundreds of thousands of dollars to $10 million to start their businesses. So crowdfunding of new businesses. So those are simple examples of how it's transforming the way we're doing business.
So what would be your suggestion for somebody that hasn't been into this social media yet? We have that people still.
I don't know if there's anyone left, but a lot of people are involved in social media from a personal standpoint. But what the book focuses on more is really how companies are being transformed and institutions and organizations, associations, government departments, because really it's opening up new ways to communicate with people. So imagine municipal governments using it as a way to communicate with citizens who would do something like take a photo of a pothole that would immediately record where that pothole is, submit it to the government, and that enters the process of being one more pothole that needs to be filled. So that's different than how we might have done things in the past of hiring people that would go around and track where these things are and then act on them. And they might not even have found them in the past. So now this could be a safer environment as a result.
So is this that government is usually asking from you, your opinion, your suggestion?
Yes, both government and the public sector as well as the private sector. And they're really seeing many uses of it, how to improve citizen services, how to improve customer services. But many companies, more importantly, are trying to explore how can we get our brand more visible in the marketplace? How can we move people through the sales cycle so that they might want to buy something from us? And then finally, will they buy something from us with a mobile commerce or an e-commerce transaction so that now I can go right to completion of getting money from people in selling my goods?
На Leadership конференцијата Generation M, која се одржа во организација на Обединетата македонска дијаспора, како што видовте од минатата емисија, беше разговарано и за ситуацијата со бегалците од Сирија. Своје мислење во врска со ова дадоа познати академци, гости на оваа конференција, и во оваа емисија повторно ви пренесуваме дел од нивните коментари.
Our new government is suggesting that we're bringing in 25,000 refugees. From a PR perspective, for lack of a better word, and also feasibility perspective, do you think that Canada is setting, do you think that this is possible within such a short period of time? And also, do you think that they're setting a good example for our Western allies?
Speaking for myself, I think it is doable. Part of it is there are some logistical problems in the sense that we've got to find places for them to stay. And generally speaking, what we've done is we've put them into army barracks until they can be processed. But I think it's all doable with goodwill. Let's see, what is it, November the 7th or 8th? And so I guess it's possible. It may be a little overly ambitious, but even if they miss the target by a month or so, I don't think anybody would be troubled about that so long as they are on the path to doing that. And I think we can clearly assimilate that number of people because there are many people in the community who have attempted to sponsor these families to begin with. I would have thought, I hate to do this, but that our community, the Macedonian Orthodox Church, ought to turn its mind to agreeing to adopt several families. Let me start with one, but why not several? And I think that would be a very positive step and something that ought to be encouraged and a seed that ought to be planted with the people that run these churches, Macedonian Orthodox churches.
Thank you.
I guess one of the challenges is, I'll go back to my civil engineering background, is the infrastructure needed for them. We need a place for them to go to and to create a life. In the past where we had, I'll give you a little bit of background. My background is Ukrainian, so my grandparents all immigrated and went out to the prairies. But the world is becoming more urbanized. And so going out and just giving them a plot of land and sending them out to make a life for themselves is not really the life that they had in mind in many cases. And so we're becoming more urbanized, and so we have to make sure that we have the urban infrastructure available for them to come to the economic engines of the country and make a life for themselves that fits into the future of Canada and fits into the future of their own families, and making sure that their children are going to have schools and education and clean water and all of the things that we need to make sure that we have a life that we will succeed and contribute to the economy.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I think that there is a lot to be learned from Canada, as Mr. Pérez said, simply because it has consistently been a country that accepts a lot of immigrants, and I don't want to say refugees for that specific matter. And they've been able to take these immigrants and not only add them to society, but make them valuable contributions to society as well. So there's a lot of lessons that can be taken from Canada and into this happening currently. And actually, that perfectly leads into my next question. You think this was planned or something? But the one question I want to ask all three of you, and this is specifically to the newest reports, which I've read just a week ago, is that people are now shifting towards trying to analyze the problem of the integration of the Syrians, the ones that have successfully applied for asylum, into the both German and European culture. The problem being that some people are stating, although they are very good at speaking English, most of them, and some of them are very good at speaking French, they're saying that there's a divide between the young ones coming in, and there's going to be a certain problem integrating them into the education system. Some reports have even gone as far as to say that it's going to make grade 1 easier, which is going to cause problems for German children. Now, I'm just quoting a report, and I was hoping to get all of your views on how difficult it would be to integrate these refugees into European culture, specifically Germany, for the case of this question.
Well, I think it ties into this Canadian multiculturalism and American melting pot. Flying to Toronto, getting to the airport, I took a Lyft. And by the way, I started taking Uber and Lyft, and who knew they were so affordable and very repellent drivers. And so we struck up a conversation with the driver, slight accent, and I asked him, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Afghanistan." He said, "Oh, when did you come here?" He said, 3 years ago. He said, "When did you start driving Lyft?" He said, 6 months ago. And I was like, wow, and this gentleman came over from Afghanistan 3 years ago, speaks very well English, and he told me that he was a translator for the U.S. Army, and that's how he actually ended up perfecting his English and coming to the United States. But I noticed this more and more, is that Canadian and American societies are doing a fantastic job of integrating immigrants that come over, and jobs and all that. And a lot of the jobs that we're not doing, immigrants are doing. Our parents were doing the jobs that we would never probably do, right? My dad would always say, if you don't get a college education, you're going to work in a factory like I did. And so that's the first lesson I think we in Canada and America, are teaching our folks that get an education, this and that. I noticed in Germany, and I've had some engagements with the Turkish community, and I recently met with somebody who's Turk, who works for the president of Germany, and she said, "Meto, Germany, here I am integrated, yes, but the majority of my fellow Turks are not integrated in German society, and Germany and the entire European Western countries have a significant problem because the population are growing older, and it's getting thinner and thinner, and those that are going to be doing the jobs that need to be done are the folks that they're bringing as those asylum seekers. And so Germany, France, Austria, Belgium need to do a much better job of integrating those folks. And I have family in Germany who, by the way, were born there and still are not citizens. And so here in Canada and America, it's much more easier to become citizens of these two great nations. And so I think those countries will have to learn from the model that Canada and America have done such a great job at somewhat perfecting. We still have a lot more work to do, but Europe should really lead now much more on this issue.
I completely agree that there has to be a mechanism that these countries like Germany and France have to figure out a way to integrate them. It's not just simply putting a roof over their head. It's got to be a way to get them, particularly their children, into the school system and to make it work. But it really almost circles back to Macedonia in terms of the refugee thing. The question ought to be, how can we help? How can we make this work? And so long as the countries ask that and they take the task seriously, they will become the net beneficiaries of accepting these refugees, in my view, into their countries.
Maybe I'll just add one
Okay,
thing to
sure.
that. And that is, aren't we just so lucky that we are here in a country that embraces multiculturalism and has found somehow this wonderful balance between being who you are. So within Canada, when someone asks where you're from, we give our cultural or ethnic background. Outside of the country, I suspect we all say we're Canadians. And it's that balance, that fine line that we have managed in whatever way that is, I think, so special.
А сега, почитувани гледачи, следува една музичка numera. И во денешната емисија имаме неколку информации. За сите ваши прослави и одбележувања користите ги банкет-салите во црквата Свети Климент Охридски во Торонто. За информации и резервации јавете се на 416-421-7451. Канадското македонско место во Торонто е пензионерски дом кој ви обезбедува угодно и хармонично живење. За повеќе информации побарете ја Златка на 416-755-9231. За професионално и поволно дизајнирање на вебсајтови побарете ги TJ Hosting на 647-547-3061. И секако читајте македонски вести сега и со детални информации и важни надписи за македонската комуна во Торонто. за сите врсти на животно осигурување, осигурување за критични болести, осигурување на вашиот кредит за куќа, инвалидско и здравствено осигурување и осигурување кога патувате, јавете се на 647 977 0233. Ние ќе ви помогнеме да го одберете најповолното и најдоброто осигурување за вас. Во денешнава емисија имаме и едно известување. Организацијата Обединети македонци од Канада ја организира 44-та комитска вечер вечерва, 6 февруари годинава во големата сала на Македонската православна црква Свети Климент Охридски во Торонто. Како специјални гости од Македонија најавени се Миленко Неделковски, политички аналитичар и новинар, и Спасен Силјановски, интерпретатор на македонски песни во фолклорен дух. Исто така ќе ве забавува и оркестарот Децата од БУФ. Дојдете вечерва, сите порачуваат од организацијата Обединети македонци. Имаме уште едно известување, овој пат од Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права од Канада. Продолжи со работа уште еден македонски весник во Албанија, финансиран од оваа организација, јавува соопштението од 19 јануари годинава. Членовите на Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права со задоволство известуваат дека, благодарејќи на посветеноста за финансиска помош, весникот на Македонското друштво Илинден во Тирана продолжи со печатење и дистрибуција до своите читатели низ Албанија. Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права ќе овозможи понатамошни услови за успешно да одекне гласот за борбата за заштитата на човековите права на угнетените и репресирани македонци во Албанија. Поврзете се со Македонското движење за човекови права на социјалните мрежи за да помогнете да се шират нашите пораки за борба за човековите права на угнетените македонци. За да донирате за весникот или за било кој друг значаен проект за човековите права на македонците, ве повикуваме да дадете свој придонес во фондот на Меѓународното македонско движење за човекови права за поддршка на македонските малцинства. Нашето време е сега, вклучете се, помогнете, донирајте, порачуваат од Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права. Исто во емисијава ве информираме за реакцијата на Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права во однос на надписот објавен во Торонто Стар на 12 јануари годинава од Коди Пунтер под наслов Македонските градежни зафати имаат за цел од Скопје да направат атрактивна туристичка дестинација. Во надписот Коди Пунтер, меѓу другото, наведува дека, во наводници, македонскиот град Скопје, благодарение на неокласичните градежни зафати, во последните неколку години е претворен во величествен хеленистички Дизниленд. Завршени наводници. Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права ги повикува сите македонци да побараат извинување од Торонто Стар и од авторот Коди Пунтер во врска со оваа прогрчка ревизионистичка историја објавена во Торонто Стар. Ретвитнете и споделете го писмото со реакцијата на Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права со вашите пријатели на социјалните мрежи, порачуваат од оваа организација на чело со претседателот Бил Николов. Музикорама, концерти и ора, директно од Лерин, Егејска Македонија, во организација на црквата Свети Наум од Охрид од Хамилтон. Наступувањата ќе се одржат на 13 февруари годинава во Хамилтон, 20 февруари во Торонто и на 21 февруари во Уиндзор. Дојдете и забавувајте се во наведениве македонски православни цркви во овие градови во Онтарио. За резервации и информации испратете имейл на stnaumhamilton@gmail.com. Скопското друштво од Торонто организира банкет по повод 8 март во големата хала во црквата Свети Климент Охридски во сабота на 5 март годинава. Ке ве забавува групата Бисер, а собраните средства ќе бидат наменети за откупување икона за црквата Свети Илија од Мисисага. Дојдете сите, забавувајте се и помогнете ја ова добротворна цел, порачуваат од Скопското друштво. Ете, почитувани гледачи, тоа е се што подготвивме за ова 371 емисија на македонско издание, која што можете да ја следите и на интернет на www.macedonianedition.tv. До 20 февруари 2016 година, кога повторно ќе се видиме. Со нова емисија ви благодарам за вашето ценето внимание, пријатно и довидување.